Don't hire him, the alien advisor whispered. If the rumors about Earth are true, bringing a human into this palace may be the biggest mistake you ever make. Lady Serafina Vare looked across the quiet room at the man standing beside the window, completely unaffected by the conversation happening around him. Jack Callahan did not argue. He did not defend himself. He simply watched the city below, studying the movement of people, the patterns of security drones, and the small details everyone else ignored. That was what bothered her most. Everyone who wanted the position of royal protection wanted to impress her. They showed their weapons, listed their achievements, and promised they could handle any situation. Jack had done none of that. You understand you are applying to protect someone who is constantly surrounded by trained professionals? Serafina asked. Jack turned from the window. Yes. And you still believe you are the right choice? I believe the right person is the one who notices what everyone else misses. The answer was simple. Almost too simple. Serafina leaned back in her chair, studying him carefully. She was used to diplomats who carefully selected every word and soldiers who filled every silence with confidence. Jack was different. He spoke like someone who had nothing to prove. Your file is unusual, she said. Half of it is classified. That is correct. Your home world is listed as Earth. Yes. She glanced at the information displayed on her tablet. The Galactic Archive classifies Earth as a death world. Jack nodded. That is what they call it. Do you disagree? For the first time, something changed in his expression. Not fear. Not pride. Something closer to memory. No. Earth is difficult. Serafina expected him to describe his planet as a place of greatness, a world that created superior beings. Instead, he simply continued. It teaches people to prepare. It teaches patience. It teaches respect for things that can hurt you. The room became quiet. The alien advisors exchanged uncertain looks. To them, humans were a young species with limited technology and a strange attachment to outdated traditions. They built machines that looked simple. They carried themselves without the elegance of older civilizations. They did not understand why someone like Jack was considered valuable. Serafina had hired him because she needed someone outside the usual political circles. Someone who would not be influenced by status or reputation. But she still wondered if she had made the right choice. Tell me something, Jack, she said. Why would someone from the most dangerous world in the known galaxy choose a quiet job protecting one person? Jack looked at her for a moment before answering. Because protecting one person matters. The answer caught her off guard. There was no dramatic speech. No attempt to sound heroic. Just a simple statement from someone who believed it completely. Outside the palace, the city continued moving. Thousands of beings walked beneath the glowing towers, unaware that the woman many considered untouchable had just placed her safety in the hands of a human they barely understood. Serafina looked back at Jack. You realize many people here think you are just a primitive bodyguard from a primitive planet. Jack gave a small nod. I know. Does that bother you? He looked toward the window again. No. Why? Jack's voice remained calm. Because people usually understand something only after they need it. For some reason, that answer stayed with her. She did not know it yet, but hiring Jack Callahan would change the way the galaxy viewed Earth forever. The first warning sign was not an alarm. It was silence. Jack Callahan noticed it before anyone else inside the Vare estate. The morning security briefing continued as usual, officials discussing schedules, routes, and diplomatic meetings, but Jack was no longer listening to the words. He was watching the room. Something is wrong, he said quietly. Lady Serafina looked up from her tablet. You have been here for less than 24 hours. What exactly makes you think that? Jack pointed toward the entrance hall. 3 guards changed positions without updating the rotation log. The Eastern Service Corridor camera was offline for 11 minutes. And your security team stopped checking the people entering through the diplomatic wing. The advisors looked confused. One of them laughed softly. You are suggesting our security system has flaws because a human noticed a few small mistakes? Jack did not react to the insult. I am saying someone wanted those mistakes to exist. Serafina watched him carefully. This was the first time she had seen him concerned. Not afraid. Not nervous. Concerned. There was a difference. She dismissed the advisors and waited until the room was empty. You really believe someone is trying to get close to me? She asked. Jack nodded. I believe someone already did. The answer changed the atmosphere instantly. Serafina had lived her entire life surrounded by powerful people. Politicians, military leaders, wealthy families. Everyone around her had always treated danger like a game of influence and reputation. Jack treated it differently. To him, danger was something you respected before it arrived. You have a habit of making people uncomfortable, she said. Most people try to make powerful individuals feel safe. Jack looked at her. Feeling safe and being safe are not the same thing. Those words stayed with her. Later that afternoon, Serafina attended a private diplomatic gathering inside the upper levels of the Capitol Tower. Hundreds of alien representatives filled the grand hall, wearing ceremonial clothing and displaying symbols of their worlds. Jack stood several feet behind her, quiet and observant. Several guests stared at him. They whispered about the human bodyguard from Earth. Some thought he looked too ordinary. Some thought his presence was unnecessary. Commander Varric Thorn was among them. The Karuan commander approached with a confident smile. Lady Serafina, I expected you to choose someone with more advanced equipment. His eyes moved toward Jack. Not someone carrying the reputation of a primitive world. Serafina remained calm. Jack was chosen because I trust his judgment. Varric smiled. Trust is a dangerous thing to give a creature you barely understand. Jack finally looked at him. That is true. Varric seemed surprised by the agreement. You admit it? Jack nodded. Trust should be earned. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Varric walked away, but Jack kept watching him. Serafina noticed. You think he is involved? I think he wants you to believe he is not. Before she could answer, every light in the hall flickered at the same time. Conversation stopped. The security displays across the room changed from blue to warning yellow. The officials looked toward their systems, confused and uncertain. Jack immediately stepped closer to Serafina. Stay with me. She looked at him. What happens now? Jack scanned the room, calm as ever. Now we find out who was waiting for me to arrive. The lights in the diplomatic hall remained frozen for 3 seconds. To everyone else, it was a minor technical issue. To Jack Callahan, 3 seconds was enough information. He watched the reflections on the polished floor, the movement of security personnel, and the way conversations stopped before anyone received an official announcement. Everyone stay calm, one of the officials said through the communication system. Jack ignored the voice, not because he was being disrespectful, but because he knew something important. People who were truly in control never needed to tell others they were in control. Lady Serafina, Jack said quietly. We are leaving. She looked at him in surprise. The event has not been canceled. I know. Then why are we leaving? Jack glanced toward the upper balcony. Because whoever caused this wants everyone looking at the wrong thing. Serafina followed his eyes, but saw nothing unusual. The room looked exactly the same. The diplomats continued standing in groups. The security officers continued checking their displays. Everything appeared normal. That was what bothered Jack. You always assume the worst, she said. Jack shook his head. No. I assume someone is trying to make me assume the wrong thing. Before Serafina could respond, Commander Varric Thorn appeared beside them. His expression was calm, but his eyes were studying Jack carefully. Leaving so soon? Varric asked. I thought humans enjoyed making dramatic entrances. Jack looked at him. You are blocking the shortest route out. Varric smiled slightly and stepped aside. Interesting. Most people would thank me. Most people are not watching your hands. For the first time, Varric stopped smiling. Serafina noticed the change. It was brief, almost impossible to see, but Jack saw it. The two men understood each other in that moment. One was testing, the other was measuring. The security system eventually returned, and the officials announced that the disruption was only a minor network failure. Everyone relaxed. Everyone except Jack. Later that evening, Serafina returned to her private residence inside the Capitol Tower. She removed the ceremonial clothing she wore for diplomatic events and looked out over the city lights. You knew something was going to happen, she said. Jack stood near the doorway, reviewing security information on a small device. I suspected. That is not an answer. He looked up. I have seen people create distractions before. From where? She asked. Earth? Jack was quiet for a moment. From everywhere. The answer surprised her. She expected a story about battles or missions. Instead, Jack gave her nothing. No details. No heroic explanation. Just silence. You really do not like talking about yourself, do you? Serafina asked. Talking does not solve problems. Neither does silence. Jack looked at her. Sometimes silence lets you hear the problem coming. Before she could reply, a notification appeared on his device. Jack's expression changed instantly. Serafina noticed. What is it? He turned the screen toward her. A security report had appeared. Someone had accessed restricted files connected to her travel schedule. Someone inside the palace. Someone with authorization. Her face became serious. Who? Jack studied the data. I do not know yet. Can you find out? Jack looked toward the city beyond the window. Thousands of lights. Millions of lives. Somewhere among them was someone who believed Serafina was unprotected. Someone who believed a human bodyguard was nothing more than a symbol. Jack closed the device. Yes. How long will it take? She asked. Jack walked toward the door. Not long. Serafina followed him with her eyes. Jack. He stopped. Be careful. For the first time since meeting him, she was not giving an order. She was expressing concern. Jack looked back and gave a small nod. I will. As he stepped into the hallway, the palace security cameras quietly turned toward him, and for the first time, the people watching from the shadows began to wonder if hiring a human had been a mistake. Not because he was dangerous, but because they had no idea what they had invited inside. The first thing Jack noticed was that the palace was too quiet. Not peaceful. Quiet. There was a difference. A peaceful building had movement, conversations, and people doing their jobs. This place felt like everyone was waiting for something to happen. Jack moved through the private security corridor beneath the Capitol Tower, his footsteps controlled and steady. Behind him, Lady Serafina followed closely, still trying to understand how a single human had noticed what hundreds of trained officials had missed. You really think someone inside the palace is working against me? She asked. Jack did not turn around. I think someone inside the palace believes they are invisible. They reached the security control room. 3 officers were already there, looking through access records. When Jack entered, they immediately became uncomfortable. This area is restricted, one officer said. Jack looked at his identification badge. Your authorization was used 12 minutes ago to open a classified archive. The officer froze. That is impossible. Jack placed the data screen on the table. Then someone used your credentials. The room went silent. Serafina looked at the officer. Can you confirm this? The officer hesitated. That hesitation told Jack everything. Before anyone could speak again, the lights flickered. A warning signal appeared across every monitor. Unknown access detected. Internal systems compromised. The security officers reached for their communication devices, but Jack raised a hand. Wait. Everyone looked at him. Why? Serafina asked. Jack studied the screens. Because this is not the attack. He looked toward the ceiling. This is the invitation. A moment later, the emergency doors throughout the palace sealed automatically. The security team rushed to respond, but their systems began locking them out one by one. The palace had become its own trap. Serafina looked around. How does someone take control of a facility this advanced? Jack answered quietly. They do not take control of the facility. They convince the facility to protect them. The sound of movement came from the hallway. The guards prepared themselves, but Jack stepped forward first. Stay behind me. Serafina frowned. You do not even know what is there. Jack checked the corridor. That is why I am going first. The doors opened. Several armored intruders entered the hallway, moving with advanced equipment and coordinated precision. They expected the palace security forces to panic. They expected Serafina to be alone. They did not expect Jack. The first intruder raised a weapon, but Jack had already moved. He used the environment around him, the narrow hallway, the security barriers, and the timing of their movements. He was not stronger than them. He was simply prepared for situations they had never experienced. Within moments, the attackers were forced back, confused by a human who refused to react the way they expected. Serafina watched from behind the security barrier. She had seen elite warriors from dozens of worlds. They were faster, stronger, and carried technology far beyond anything humans used. But Jack moved differently. He did not fight like someone trying to prove he was dangerous. He moved like someone trying to make sure nobody else had to be. Then a voice echoed through the hallway speakers. Commander Varric Thorn. Impressive, Jack Callahan. I understand now why Earth hides people like you. Jack looked toward the camera. You were testing me. Varric gave a calm laugh. No. I was confirming something. A pause followed. The galaxy believes humans survived Earth by luck. I wanted to know if that was true. Jack remained silent. Varric continued. Now I know. The connection ended. Serafina stepped closer. What did he mean? Jack looked at the damaged security system. His expression became serious. He was not trying to remove you. Then what was he doing? Jack looked toward the darkened city outside. He was trying to find out what Earth created. And for the first time, Serafina wondered if the danger was not that Jack came from the most difficult world in the galaxy. The danger was that someone had finally realized exactly what that meant. The truth about Earth was hidden in plain sight. Jack Callahan discovered that the most dangerous thing about his home world was not its storms, its oceans, or its predators. It was the people Earth created. The palace had returned to normal, but everyone inside it had changed. The security officers who once questioned Jack now watched him with a mixture of respect and uncertainty. They had seen enough to understand one simple fact. The human they considered ordinary was anything but ordinary. Lady Serafina stood in the palace observation room, looking over the city below. "You knew someone would come for me eventually," she said. Jack stood several feet away, reviewing the security reports. "Yes." She turned toward him. "And you never told me?" Jack looked up. "Would it have changed your decision?" She paused. The honest answer was no. She had hired him because everyone else around her had already failed in ways they refused to admit. "You really believe you can protect anyone from everything?" she asked. Jack looked back at the city. "No." The answer surprised her. "Then why do you act like you can?" Jack was quiet for a moment. "Because the job is not about stopping everything. It is about being there when something happens." Serafina studied him. For the first time, she saw beyond the calm expression. Jack was not fearless. He simply understood fear better than most people. A message suddenly appeared on the security display. It was not an emergency alert. It was an old Earth transmission code. Jack immediately stepped closer. His expression changed. Serafina noticed. "What is it?" He did not answer at first. He opened the file. The information displayed was a restricted report from years earlier. A report about a mission Jack had never mentioned. "You have a history with Commander Varek," Serafina said. Jack closed the screen. "Not exactly." "Then explain." Jack looked at the message again. Varek studied Earth military history. He spent years searching for weaknesses in human security systems. "And you?" she asked. Jack took a slow breath. "I was part of the team that showed him there were no easy answers." The room became quiet. Serafina realized something important. Jack was not just a bodyguard. He was someone who had already encountered people like Varek before. People who believed intelligence and technology could replace understanding. Before she could ask another question, every communication channel in the palace activated at once. Commander Varek appeared on the main screen. "Lady Serafina, I apologize for the inconvenience." His tone was calm and almost respectful. "I did not want to harm you. I wanted to reveal the truth." Serafina stepped forward. "The truth about what?" Varek looked directly at Jack. "About humanity." Jack remained silent. Varek continued. "Your people tell the galaxy they seek peace. They tell everyone they have moved beyond their violent past. But that is not what I discovered." His expression hardened. "Humans are dangerous because they learned control." Serafina looked at Jack. She expected him to deny it. He did not. That silence bothered her more than any answer could have. "Is he right?" she asked quietly. Jack looked at her. "About what?" "That Earth is hiding something." Jack looked toward the screen where Varek waited. "Every civilization hides something." "What does Earth hide?" Jack's voice lowered. "What happens when we stop holding back?" The connection ended suddenly. Serafina stood frozen, realizing the situation had changed. Varek was no longer trying to remove her. He was trying to force Earth to reveal itself. And somewhere beyond the stars, powerful people were watching, waiting to see what humanity would do next. The palace did not feel like a place of safety anymore. It felt like a stage, and everyone inside was waiting to see who would make the first move. Jack Callahan stood in the center of the security command room, studying the information Varek had left behind. Serafina watched him carefully. "You are not surprised?" she said. Jack looked at the screen. "No." "Why?" she asked. "Because he wanted us to find this." On the display was a series of encrypted files. They were not stolen records or secret military plans. They were historical documents about Earth. Images of ancient cities, old exploration missions, human disasters and recoveries. Thousands of years of survival. Serafina looked confused. "This is what he wanted." Jack nodded. "He wanted you to see what the galaxy refuses to understand." "And what is that?" Jack turned toward her. "Earth was never a peaceful world because it was weak. Earth became peaceful because it learned what happened when it stopped controlling itself. Before Serafina could respond, every screen in the command room changed. A new message appeared, not from Varric, from the Galactic Security Council. An emergency order had been issued. Commander Varric Thorn had accused Jack Callahan of being an unidentified threat and demanded his immediate removal from the palace. Serafina stared at the message. He turned the situation around. Jack nodded. That was the plan. He attacked us. And now he is making you look like the danger? Yes. She looked frustrated. How does someone like that get away with this? Jack answered calmly. Because people believe what they are prepared to believe. The palace alarms suddenly activated. Security personnel rushed into the room. Lady Serafina, we have received orders from the council. We need to escort the human into custody until this matter is investigated. Nobody moved. Jack looked at the officers. He saw uncertainty in their faces. They were not enemies. They were following instructions. Serafina stepped between them. He protected me. One officer lowered his voice. My lady, we are not questioning your judgment. But the order came from the highest authority. Jack looked at the officer. What is your name? The officer hesitated. Commander Elias Reed. Jack nodded. Commander Reed, when you received that order, did anyone explain why I was considered dangerous? Elias looked uncomfortable. No. Did anyone provide evidence? Another pause. No. Jack looked around the room. That is how people lose control. Not because someone forces them. Because they stop asking questions. The officers remained silent. Then another message appeared on the main display. This time, it was from Varric. He was standing inside a command center somewhere far from the palace. Lady Serafina, I admire your loyalty. Unfortunately, loyalty often makes people blind. She stepped toward the screen. What do you want? Varric smiled. I want the galaxy to finally understand what humanity really is. He looked directly at Jack. And I want Earth to prove me right. Jack narrowed his eyes. You are not trying to destroy me. Varric smiled. No. A pause followed. I am trying to make you choose. The screen went dark. Serafina looked at Jack. Choose what? Jack stared at the empty display. For the first time, she saw something different in him. Not fear. Not anger. A decision. Whether I remain the person I promised myself I would be. Outside the palace, distant signals began appearing across the planet. Ships were moving. Governments were responding. Varric had created exactly what he wanted. A situation where humanity had to reveal how far it was willing to go. And somewhere beyond the stars, the galaxy was watching Earth for the first time, not as a new civilization, but as a question no one knew how to answer. The galaxy had spent centuries believing that power was something you could measure. Bigger fleets, stronger armor, more advanced technology. But Jack Callahan knew something most civilizations forgot. The most dangerous things were not always the things that made the most noise. The palace was placed under full security lockdown. Every communication channel was monitored. Every entrance was guarded. Yet somehow, Commander Varric Thorn had achieved exactly what he wanted. He had made everyone question the human standing in the center of the room. Lady Serafina watched Jack carefully as he studied the growing number of reports appearing on the screens. You are really not going to explain yourself, are you? She asked. Jack looked at her. Explain what? Why you are not afraid? Why you are not angry? Everyone is accusing you of being a threat. Jack looked back at the information. Because anger is usually what people want from you when they are trying to control your next decision. Serafina stayed quiet. She realized something about Jack. He was not ignoring the danger. He was thinking several steps ahead of it. Suddenly, Commander Elias Reed entered the room. His expression was serious. Lady Serafina, we have a problem. Jack immediately turned. What happened? Elias looked uncomfortable. The Council has issued a second order. They are freezing all diplomatic communication with Earth until an investigation is completed. Serafina frowned. They are isolating Earth? Elias nodded. Yes. Jack understood immediately. That is the real target. Serafina looked at him. Not me. No. You were the reason they could get close. Earth is the objective. For the first time, everyone in the room understood the scale of Varric's plan. This was never about one person. It was about forcing humanity into a position where any response could be used against them. If Earth stayed quiet, they would appear weak. If Earth reacted, they would prove Varric's argument. Serafina looked at Jack. So what do we do? Jack walked toward the communication console. We do what we should have done from the beginning. And what is that? Jack looked at the screen displaying the message from Earth. We tell the truth. The palace communication system opened a direct channel to Earth. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then a voice answered. Identify yourself. Jack took a breath. Jack Callahan. Security contractor assigned to Lady Serafina Vare. A pause followed. Then another voice joined the channel. Older. Calmer. Jack. He recognized the voice immediately. Director Morgan. Serafina noticed the change in his expression. It was small, but it was there. A connection to a past he rarely mentioned. You have been quiet for a long time, Director Morgan said. I know. And now you are calling because someone finally forced your hand. Jack looked toward Serafina. Yes. There was silence on the channel. Then Morgan asked the question everyone had been waiting for. Do we show them? Jack did not answer immediately. Outside the palace, ships from multiple worlds were moving closer. The council was watching. Varric was waiting. The entire galaxy wanted to see what humanity would do. Serafina whispered, What does he mean? Jack looked at her. Earth has spent generations making sure people saw what we wanted them to see. And now, she asked. Jack looked back at the communication screen. Now they are asking to see the truth. The palace lights dimmed as a massive transmission began spreading across the galaxy. Not a threat. Not a declaration of war. A message. And when the first images appeared, every observer watching from distant worlds realized one thing. They had never actually known what Earth was capable of. The first image Earth sent across the galaxy was not a weapon. It was a classroom. Thousands of alien observers watched in confusion as the transmission opened with ordinary human children learning about their home world. They saw oceans, mountains, forests, and cities. They saw storms crossing continents and people rebuilding after disasters. They expected to see a demonstration of power. Instead, they saw a history of survival. Lady Serafina stood beside Jack Callahan inside the palace communication chamber, watching the reactions from different worlds appear across the screens. Some looked confused. Some looked disappointed. They had expected Earth to reveal hidden fleets or secret technology. They do not understand, Serafina said quietly. Jack watched the transmission continue. They are looking for something they already believe exists. And what do they believe? She asked. Jack answered without looking away. That strength has to look impressive. The transmission changed. The galaxy saw ancient records of Earth missions. Explorers entering unknown environments. Engineers solving impossible problems. Rescue teams entering dangerous conditions because someone needed help. Scientists working through failures until they found answers. It was not a story about conquest. It was a story about adaptation. Director Morgan's voice came through the communication channel. Jack, the council is demanding an explanation. Jack looked at the screen. Give them one. A new message appeared from the Galactic Security Council. Several representatives demanded to know why Earth had classified information about its own capabilities. They accused humanity of hiding its true nature. Serafina looked frustrated. They are blaming you for surviving. Jack nodded. That happens when people mistake preparation for aggression. Then another transmission interrupted the council broadcast. Commander Varric appeared. But this time, he looked different. Not confident. Not amused. Concerned. You finally showed them, Varric said. Jack looked at the screen. That was what you wanted. Varric remained silent for a moment. No. Everyone in the room became still. That was what I thought I wanted. Serafina stepped closer. What does that mean? Varric looked away briefly. I studied your species for years. I believed humans were dangerous because they refused to admit what they were. Jack watched him carefully. And now? Varric's expression changed. Now I realize I was wrong. Nobody expected those words. Not from him. Not from the person who had spent weeks trying to expose humanity. Varric continued. I thought Earth created warriors because it valued conflict. I was wrong. Earth created people who protect others because it understands the cost of losing them. Jack remained silent. But Serafina noticed something. Varric was not apologizing. He was warning them. There is something else, Jack said. Varric looked at him. Yes. The transmission shifted. New information appeared. A hidden network had been discovered inside the Galactic Council. Varric had not been acting alone. Someone else had been using the fear of humanity to manipulate entire civilizations. Serafina stared at the information. Who? Varric looked directly at Jack. The people who needed the galaxy afraid of Earth. The room became silent. Jack understood immediately. Varric had not been trying to destroy humanity. He had been trying to expose a larger threat. But he had chosen the wrong method. Director Morgan spoke quietly through the channel. Jack, this changes everything. Jack looked at Serafina. No. It changes what people know. Outside the palace, the galaxy continued watching. The species that once questioned humanity were now questioning their own leaders. And somewhere in the shadows, the people who had manipulated the conflict realized something too late. The human they tried to control had never been the easiest part of their plan. The easiest part was making everyone underestimate him. The galaxy had spent generations searching for a reason to fear humanity. Instead, it found a reason to understand it. The investigation into the hidden network inside the Galactic Council changed everything. Leaders who had spent years judging Earth were forced to face a different truth. Humanity had not been hiding because it wanted power. Humanity had been careful because it understood the responsibility that came with it. Months later, Lady Serafina Vare stood before the newly formed Interstellar Assembly. The same chamber where she once watched powerful leaders question Earth was now filled with representatives waiting to hear her words. Jack Callahan stood nearby, exactly as he always had. Quiet, observant, watching the room instead of the attention. Serafina looked toward him before speaking. You know, most people would have enjoyed this moment. Jack glanced at her. What moment? She smiled slightly. The moment everyone finally realizes they were wrong about you. Jack looked around the chamber. That was never the goal. Then what was, she asked. Jack thought for a moment, making sure they did not need to learn the lesson the hard way. Serafina remembered the first day they met. She remembered thinking he was just a simple human bodyguard from a difficult world. Now she understood something deeper. Jack was not powerful because he came from a dangerous planet. He was powerful because he carried the lessons of that planet without letting them control him. Commander Varric Thorn was also present. He no longer stood as an enemy. He stood as someone who had learned from his mistake. I spent years studying humanity, Varric said quietly as he approached Jack after the meeting. I believed I understood your species. Jack looked at him. You understood the information. Varric nodded. But not the people. A small silence passed between them. That was my mistake. Jack accepted the words with a simple nod. No celebration. No anger. Just acceptance. Later that evening, Serafina and Jack stood outside the palace overlooking the city. The lights below represented thousands of worlds, millions of lives, and countless stories that would continue long after their own. Do you ever miss Earth? Serafina asked. Jack looked up at the stars. Every day. Then why stay out here? She asked. Jack smiled faintly. Because someone has to remind people that strength is not about making others afraid. Serafina looked at him. What is it about then? Jack watched the city below. Knowing you could do something and choosing not to unless it is necessary. Those words stayed with her. Years later, when historians recorded the moment humanity changed its place among the stars, they did not write about a battle or a victory. They wrote about a choice. A choice made by a species from a harsh world that could have demanded fear but chose responsibility instead. They wrote about the human who stood between danger and someone who needed protection. The human who never asked to be called a hero. The human who proved that the most dangerous thing about Earth was never its storms, its oceans, or its wild places. It was the people who learned how to survive them and still chose kindness afterward. And across the galaxy, whenever someone asked what humanity truly was, the answer became simple. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not harmless. Humanity was restraint. And everyone who had once underestimated that restraint finally understood one thing. The quietest people in the room were often the ones who knew exactly what they were capable of.